Hey guys, it's Linux Next here. In today's video, we are going to be looking at Playtron OS Alpha 3.1, or really just Alpha 3, to look at what is new with this release. Since the last time I reviewed Playtron was the first Alpha release, and there was a lot of things missing, and there still is a lot of things missing, I would say. But they have added in some new features onto the UI, and they have fixed a ton of issues also in the actual operating system itself. And they also created their other new application that allows you to do some interesting things with Playtron. So if you don't know what Playtron is, it is a Fedora-based operating system. But the biggest thing here is that the company around Playtron has hired developers to try and make their own UI within GameScope, which if you don't know what GameScope is, it is a whaling compositor developed by Valve. And anyone can really use it in their own project if you want to. And Playtron is trying to build their own UI. And as we can see here, here's an image of what Playtron actually looks like. It says it's a simple OS that does nothing but gaming. Playtron GameOS extracts the gaming ecosystem from Windows and leaves everything else behind. So that was the other thing. They decided to change the name of Playtron to, instead of Playtron OS, to Playtron GameOS, which honestly, I don't understand why they did that. It could have just been left it at Playtron OS. It's way easier to say, but they wanted to change it to Playtron GameOS. I guess that's okay, but if I was running the company, I think I'd just leave it at Playtron OS. That just rolls off the tongue a lot more easier. And it explains here a world apart from other systems, when really it's not, I would say. It shows SteamOS, Windows, and Playtron GameOS, and it tries to show what Playtron has when it comes to its advantages, when really, it shows SteamOS here, and it says only Steam supported out of the box, which is wrong. You can install anything you want on SteamOS. Sure, you probably need to log into your Steam account, but you have to log in with a Playtron account also. So they don't really know what they're talking about there, because you can go into desktop mode, install plenty of other game launchers, either it be the EA app, Ubisoft app, Epic Games Store, GOG, and then add it into the SteamOS UI and then launch it from there. So don't really know what they're talking about there. And then it says it only supports the Steam Deck, which is also now not true, because the Lenovo Legion Go S is launching in May, and that will have that will have SteamOS pre-installed on it. And SteamOS is coming out to public beta very soon, where anyone can download it and technically just install it on the system and see how it runs. And then it shows Windows here, which is, it says, Windows, monolithic OS built for productivity software, not games, which I kind of agree with that, because if you look back at the history of Windows and how it was designed and made, it was designed for mostly productivity stuff. It wasn't really meant to be playing games, and the developers, game developers, turned Windows into a mostly gaming platform as it is today. Back when, in the 90s and the 2000s, mostly people were using Windows because it was good for running different office software, or maybe some coding applications was pretty decent at that also. And then it says not optimized for mass market consumer gaming, which is also true. You don't see Windows on a Xbox console, even though it does run Windows components. It doesn't run the actual Windows desktop environment. It runs its own console UI on top of it, so that it looks like a console UI. And then it says with Playtron, it natively supports many different game stores out of the box, which it only supports 3. There is some missing, like EA and Ubisoft. Those aren't supported, while in SteamOS you can install those. But I'm guessing Playtron will probably add a desktop mode, and you'll be able to add those manually maybe to the Playtron UI so that you can launch it from there. And then it says it supports many different handheld devices and PCs, which is true. You can install Playtron on any device you want. Being said, it might have issues. There might be missing features. There might be all types of different problems that might occur. And then it's designed for an optimal gaming experience. Which, yeah, that's true. In my testing, you can launch the majority of games. There is some issues I'll show in this video of games not launching properly, but yeah, it is designed for an optimal gaming experience. And then this is where you can go and download the Playtron ISO, and we can look at the release notes of the Alpha 3.1. So in this new changelog, the first one is called Gamelab, which I won't talk about that just yet. That will be further in the video, but it is a new application that Playtron has designed. They have introduced the improved Steam support, so there's now full cloud save support, which is true. That has improved my experience when it comes to cloud saves on Steam within Playtron. And then it says here, more reliable game downloads, faster and more reliable Steam game launching, more reliable offline support for Steam, and a QR code login using the Steam app on Android or iOS, which is true. I did use that to log in Playtron to connect my Steam account, and it went perfectly fine. And then they also added touchscreen support finally, so that is good to see. So if you have a handheld device, you can now actually, touch the UI interface and it'll actually do something. And then there's a decent amount of little bug fixes that have been added, like non-Steam Deck touchscreen controls are not completely supported, progress bar does not work when updating, Azus Rogue Ally is not receiving inputs from the touchscreen, some Steam games fail to download at 100% progress with an error code 57, sometimes Playtron GameOS will boot into a black screen when using slow storage media, and Steam Cloud saves can get corrupted, Steam Cloud saves have no conflict resolution. So all those have been fixed, which is really good to see. And then there is a bunch of known issues from Alpha 1, Alpha 2, and Alpha 3. So, and Gamelab also. So I would say that, Playtron, when it comes to its development progress, it is going well. But as we can see, there is still a lot of issues that they need to get through when it comes to, getting Playtron to a state where someone can use it when it fully releases into a stable state. And the last thing I want to talk about is the company of Playtron. It is quite interesting with the founders that are included. So these two here, I don't know much about them, but I do know a decent amount about Kurt McMaster, which if you want to go watch my first review on Playtron OS, which is the Alpha 1 review, I do go a bit in depth of the background of Kurt McMaster, but a short preview of him is that he ruined Cyberpunk mod. He took over that team and he made it go basically bankrupt, and that's why Cyberpunk mod doesn't exist anymore, and that's why Lineage OS exists now, which is a popular custom ROM that you can use on your Android phones. If you want to keep an Android phone updated on the latest Android version, you would use Lineage OS, or back then you would use Cyberpunk mod. So he's basically he's the CEO of Playtron, so it's quite interesting, how this company is gonna go. And there is crypto stuff involved, which is a bit also of a weird subject to talk about. Don't know why crypto is exactly involved with this. From my understanding, they partnered with a crypto company that is making a handheld which is going to run Playtron, and it's going to have crypto games, or like Web3 games, on the handheld device. So really interesting. My thoughts as well, I'm not going to buy this handheld because it's going to have probably crypto stuff in the actual OS of Playtron, so not going to buy that. But when it comes to Playtron itself, like the actual OS, it is going well with the development, and it is open source, so I would say it is a good alternative to SteamOS, and it brings competition. But at some point, I'm hearing also that Playtron might go proprietary. So the source code that you're seeing on GitHub from Playtron OS's development team might go proprietary at some point, which doesn't even make sense because these projects they're using are all open source projects and they have licenses applied to them. So I don't know how they're going to do that, if they're going to make the stuff that they're working on proprietary and then they're going to use open source stuff on the side also, or if they're going to try and make it all proprietary, which doesn't make sense at all. Overall, the company with Playtron is in an interesting state. But besides that, let's actually go and see, Playtron OS Alpha 3, see some gameplay, see the problems that I have experienced, and some of the new features, and Gamelab also. Alright, and now we can see that we are in the Playtron OS UI. So this is what it looks like. You've already seen it in the intro of the video. But as you can see, we got all different games here that we can access. We can go to the collection where we can see all of our games here. And one of the first issues that I want to note here is the stuttery experience that I get when I'm scrolling through my library. As you just saw there, it just stuttered. It just seems to happen randomly. I think it may be trying to cache new pictures but these pictures aren't being cached maybe. That's my theory on why it's like stuttering when it does that. Just did it again. So that's quite a weird little issue that I've experienced, but as you can see, this is our library. We have Epic Games and Steam connected. And if we do go to our settings here, one thing that I did like this time is that it picked up my other drives that had my other games installed from Steam. When last time it didn't detect that. So now I can play my games that are on my CashesOS install, and I can play it on the Playtron OS itself. And if you haven't seen the full rundown of Playtron OS's like settings menu, you've got your internet, you've got your Bluetooth, which for me, Bluetooth doesn't work properly still on my hardware. I have reported this issue already to the Playtron support team, as they do have a support thing where you can open up a ticket and explain the issue that you're having. So right now, my SN30 Pro controller is plugged in via a wire because it ran out of battery, but the only way I can actually use this controller is either plugged in or through the 2.4 gigahertz dongle that I have here that I bought from 8BitDo, because I can't connect my controller through Bluetooth, while on CashesOS I can connect it through Bluetooth. And this is the same experience when it comes to Bluetooth headphones. So we can test this out right now. If I do grab my Bluetooth headphones, and if we do put them into a pairing mode, right? So we put it into pairing mode here, and then we can select it to try and connect to it. But it's probably going to show up with what showed up last time, which was an error when it comes to connecting these. Well, if I try to connect them on, let's say, CashesOS, it does connect, but it does have other problems, like the sound, for example, has some issues with these wireless earbuds. And as you can see, Bluetooth connection unsuccessful. So you can retry, and it just basically keeps coming up with that error every single time. And that's the same for my 8BitDo controller, which I've already explained. It already works in CashesOS, but it doesn't work in Playtron OS. And then when it comes to display options, it's very simple right now. All you have is a brightness, as you can see. There's no resolution, there's no refresh rate changes, there is no VRR, there's no HDR, there's no screen tearing. None of those things are implemented right now into Playtron, and they should be implemented in the future because they are using, like I said before, they are using GameScope as the compositor, and that already supports all of those features, so it shouldn't be hard to add this into the display options. And then the same goes with audio. So you got your different output, which I've got it to my speakers, and it's chosen my C920 webcam as the microphone. Don't know why. And then you can change the slider, and you can also now turn off sound effects if you want to. And then you can go into the linked accounts option. So if you want to link any other accounts that you didn't have before, you can now do that. As you can see, I have my Epic Games and my Steam connected. And then you got the usual time zone, which you can show either to set automatically, do the 24-hour time, and then you can of course change the time zone manually if you want to. And then the advanced option is basically just the about, where you can show the version and like your hardware, and then you can file a bug report, do a log level. You can enable remote access, which you need to enable for the new Gamelab application, and then of course you can do a factory reset. Now, one of the new things in Playtron OS is finally a sidebar menu that you can actually bring up. So if we do go into a game, I think, let's say we go into Fallout 4, for example, we launch this game. This is what it looks like when you launch a game, by the way. So it basically mostly hides just about everything when it comes to installing things, trying to make the experience a bit more seamless for the user. And as you can see, there's the launcher, and it does work with my controller, so I don't need to use a mouse. We can click play. You can see it is working perfectly fine. Now the problem with Fallout 4 is that it doesn't pick up my save file, which is interesting. It's through Steam, so it should be able to pick it up, but sadly it does not. So even though they did bring over this Steam cloud save support, it is not working properly in Fallout 4 for me. And the new sidebar menu, you can bring it up with the one of the special buttons on your controller. I forgot what it's called, but basically you can go back into it if you want to, if it wants to go back into the game. It doesn't seem like it wants to go back into the game. That's an interesting issue. So I got to replug my controller back in to get back into the game. And there is a pause and resume system now, so you can actually like get out of a game and then come back later if you want to resume playing it. As before, that wasn't implemented at all, and you had to exit the game, so really good to see that feature. But if we press the special button, which is right here, you can see it brings up a sidebar menu where we can bring up the virtual keyboard, which is also new, and it is their own theme. It might be the same keyboard from SteamOS when it comes to like what virtual keyboard they're using, but they are using their own theme for it, and it does work extremely well, I would say. I used it a bunch when it came to setting it up and signing into accounts. And if we do go back to the sidebar, we can change the brightness, the volume, the microphone, and we can enable the Wi-Fi, and we can also take a screenshot, which for me, when I took one, I don't know where it saves. Like I do a screenshot, it says it took a screenshot of Fallout 4, but it doesn't tell you where the screenshot is saved, and there's no option to actually go and look at it and like share it or something. So maybe that's a future thing that they're going to introduce at some point. And then if we do press the special button again, it brings you to the home menu, and it says playing. And then we can go and then hit resume, and then it resumes back into the game. So I think that's pretty cool how they do actually have a system set up here. And then we can press Y and then close to close the game. Alright, and one of the other new applications that I did talk about a decent amount is about Gamelab. So this is a new application that the Playtron developers have created for you, and to get this working, you of course download the application, which I'll leave a link in the description for you guys to download it. You need to turn on the remote access option in the Playtron advanced settings, and then you can connect it if you know the IP address of that local computer on your network. So after you get that information, it will tell you the information of what the local IP is, so then you can connect it with your whatever device is running the Gamelab software. You'll be introduced with basically a sidebar menu here which shows your devices, so all of your drives that are mounted and that Playtron can see. Then the providers, so you've got Epic Games, GOG and Steam, and then your account down the bottom of here. And of course you can tick these off if you want to show different games that are installed on these particular drives or not. And then what you can do is, let's say we click on Fallout 4. Well, there's a couple of options. We can either launch it, there is a reset wine prefix, so let's say you have some issue with the game and you really can't solve it and the developers aren't able to solve it, or maybe they'll ask you to reset your wine prefix. You are able to do that so that it clears all the dependencies that are included in that wine prefix. You can bypass an app update if you want to, and you can enable enhanced debugging if you want to send like some support thing to the developers about a game not working properly in Playtron. Then the next one, what we can do is add a launch config. So this is where things might get a little bit interesting if you're into this type of configs that you can create, where it can install different things inside of either the wine prefix, and I'm guessing you probably can add some different things into this when it comes to an actual like launch config also. So if you want to enable maybe like game mode or something, you might be able to add this into the actual code itself. But the default config that does get created here is basically just fonts. So it just installs a bunch of 2 different fonts for you by default, which does seem to work for the majority of games. And then the last one that we can do is we can add a input config. So this is where we can customize different configurations for your controller, and then you can choose that config in Playtron. So when you go to launch a game, you can choose that controller config and then go, you know, like, oh, I want this config that does these different buttons for whatever button you've assigned it to. So for example, like the D-pad, we can change the, usually it's arrow up, we can change it to, I don't know, for it to press B. And then we can save this, and then we've saved it in Fallout 4. If we go to Fallout 4, I bet we can change it to a different, yeah, as we can see, if we point my camera back up, there is a new layout that I just created on my computer, and it syncs it directly to it where we can select it. So I think that's pretty cool that you're able to do that pretty damn easily. And I guess we'll test out the launch function to see if actually launching a game from my computer actually works. So let's select Dirt Rally 2 for example, and we click launch on my computer, and let's see what happens. Okay, Dirt Rally 2 has been brought to the front. Is it going to launch though? There we go. Wow, cool. That's a pretty cool feature, that it was able to just launch it from my laptop and launch it onto my main PC. So I definitely think that the Gamelab piece of software here does do and actually is pretty nice to use when it comes to if you want to create different controller configs, if you want to look at the games that are installed, or maybe you have like some game updates you want to do, but you're not at your computer and you just want to do it real quickly. Kind of like the SteamOS application in a sense, but just a desktop application. And maybe they'll bring Gamelab over to Android. I don't know if that's available, but for me, you're able to use it on Linux, you're able to use it on Windows, and you are able to use it on macOS also. Alright, and now the next thing that we're going to try out is what games that I have installed, how do they behave, and do they have any real problems when it comes to testing them? Well, basically the conclusion with this is if it's a single player game, it's going to mostly work. Even if it has a launcher, like let's say with Fallout, they have their own Bethesda little launcher, or like Witcher 3 that has its own launcher, those games will work fine. There's only one, which was GTA 4. That one, for some reason, doesn't want to launch. When I launch it, it just instantly closes. That's what happens. When it comes to everything else, they mostly do work. The other one is Anticheat games. For some reason, even the games that are supported on Linux through Proton do not want to launch properly and will have issues. Like I decided to download Elden Ring because I didn't have it installed because I reset my computer, yada yada. I installed it and I launched it, and the EAC failed to find some files, it seems. So if I launch it right now, I'll show you guys the error that appears. It fails to initialize is what happens. And even though it should grab those dependencies and it should know where EAC is, as you can see, it's loading EAC, and it says launch error, failed to get the process path. That's the issue that happens. So it fails to get some process path. I don't know what that means. Path meaning it failed to find a particular path with EAC. I don't really know what the issue is with that, but yeah, you can't play something like Elden Ring for now. Maybe if I already had it installed, it would work. But for some reason, downloading it from Playtron and launching it failed to launch properly. And then I guess I'll show off Grand Theft Auto 4, the issue that happens with that. So we try and launch it. When it comes to the Rockstar launcher, that launches perfectly fine, and you can log into your account and it should launch the game perfectly fine, but it fails to do that. So as you can see, I've been sitting here for like almost a minute and it hasn't progressed any further, and it's basically just going to sit on this, and then at some point it backs out, and there you go. Error launching app. So yeah, it just fails to launch. Don't really know why that happens. I probably should report this, open a ticket with Playtron and send them a bunch of logs so that they can figure out what the issue is. Same goes with something like Helldivers 2. It launches the Anticheat, which is the INCA or NProtect Game Guard, and then it fails to launch. It closes, and we're back onto the main menu. And the same thing goes with Halo Infinite. This also, I'm pretty sure, uses the EAC anti-cheat, and it just fails to launch, as we'll see here in like, I don't know, 30 seconds or something like that. Same problem. Okay, this actually brings my conclusion with EAC that, because Halo Infinite, I didn't download it on Playtron, it's on my CashOS install, so something is going wrong here when it comes to the EAC side of things. It's just not able to find a process path to get the process path, so at some point that will be fixed so that you can play those games. And once again, when I've just exited that game, my controller has decided to stop working in Playtron. So I'm going to have to repair it again so then I can close the game. So here we are in Doom Eternal, for example. This is a good game to play, I would say. Has a lot of fans who like it. And it is working in Playtron OS perfectly fine. There's no real big issues with it. If we do skip this here, we can walk around. Vibrations do work properly on my controller in Playtron, so that's really good to see also. And we can do this with keyboard and mouse also. So if you're not a fan of controller, even though this is meant to be more like a console experience, you can still use keyboard and mouse for kind of like accessibility, I would say. Or if you just want to play on keyboard and mouse, like, I don't know, maybe you want to play Fragpunk or the Finals or something where you're playing like a fast-paced FPS shooter, you're able to use your keyboard and mouse. But as you can see, yeah, Doom Eternal, no issues whatsoever. And as we can see here, Cyberpunk 2077, we can see that the launcher is working in Playtron with the GameScope compositor. We can click play here, and it should work perfectly fine. As we can see, the game is launching. Alright, here's some gameplay of Cyberpunk 2077 on Playtron. It is working perfectly fine. One thing I would like to see is some type of FPS overlay, which that probably is going to be introduced at some point in Playtron. And they probably can utilize something like Mango HUD, for example, and I can probably put it into this sidebar thing. Okay, that's interesting. I pressed the button on my controller to bring up the side menu, but it just instantly put me out to the main menu, so that's quite interesting. If I hit play again, there we go. Okay, a little bit buggy. There's extra space here that could be added when it comes to showing an FPS overlay or adding extra things like VR or screen tearing. Those would be great options, I would say. But yeah, really good. Cyberpunk is working perfectly fine. And when it comes to the Epic Games side of things, I do have Ghostrunner installed, which does indeed work. I absolutely suck at it on controller because I'm more used to keyboard and mouse, but I'm going to show gameplay anyways because, well, it's good to show off if a game on the Epic Games Store works or not. And as you can see, it's working. One of the other good things that I'm noticing is the overlay for Epic Games is working, as we just saw it popped up. I'm pretty sure it was Shift FN3. Yeah, as you can see, it is working properly. And we can go in here, my controller is working, we can click new game, and here we are. So, no issues with when it comes to installing an Epic Games game so far. Ghostrunner seems to download perfectly fine. As you can see, the gameplay is working. Great also, it looks and feels great also when playing it. It doesn't feel like I'm on a 60Hz monitor, because I know GameScope likes to do that sometimes, but it's not doing that. So, really good, I would say. So overall, with Playtron OS so far, is that, well, it does have a lot to go when it comes to its features, but if I would like to know your comments about Playtron, you know, like what are your thoughts on it while just looking at this video, when it comes to its UI, when it comes to features you would like to see that, you know, SteamOS has, I would really like to know. So that is the conclusion with Playtron OS Alpha 3.1. I am excited to see, you know, the development of Playtron, to see like maybe like a year from now, how Playtron OS is going. Is it even still alive a year later? We'll have to find out. And when it comes to, you know, its features that they're going to add possibly in the future, it is looking pretty good, I would say. If you're looking for an alternative to not using the SteamOS gaming mode, which I would say SteamOS gaming mode is like the best UI you could ask for, plus like modding stuff. It's like so freaking awesome besides Playtron OS's alpha development. But if you guys did enjoy this video, I definitely would give it a like. I definitely would subscribe to the channel also, and thank you to my supporters / members. I will show a text across the screen of all you guys. They're giving me money every single damn month. I really do appreciate it, like I really do, and I will see you guys in the next video. Peace.